because, you know, we're talking about developing your practice in imagination, not developing your imagination. Imagination, you don't change. Imagination is something that you don't, like faith. You don't build, you don't grow, you know. Faith is faith. That's why it says faith, the grain of a mustard seed, is to get out of your mind that, you know, you don't have faith, that you have to do something to build faith, increase faith. Well, there is a way of increasing faith, and there is a way of building faith, and that is by practicing, that is by using it. You know, muscles can atrophy, you know, weaken, and just become almost like not there because you don't use it. You use it. You develop muscles by using them. And so faith you develop and build by practice, by using, same as imagination. Imagination is an essence. Imagination is an aspect of mind. You can't make it bigger or better or stronger except by practicing and using. And it's not expanding, it's just showing up as much stuff and bigger stuff. Larger demonstrations and immediate healing. Healing will come as fast as and as immediate as the power of your imagination from practice, from using it. Am I right? It's just like me standing here right now, imagining that this workshop is already finished, that we are working from the end. We're working in the end. What end? Has nothing to do with time. In the end, in the sense that how it has affected your mind, your thinking, your consciousness from the from all that flows through me and all that flows through us in this meeting. Can you turn down a little bit? I'll get a little echo. From all that is coming through us. So what did we do this morning? We woke up this morning moving out of our homes from an intention, in an intention. And each of us was imagining the outcome for and of this meeting. Am I right? Every one of us, or you wouldn't have been here. You had no reason to come. You came here with a purpose. And the purpose was to participate in a gathering of spiritual practitioners who would come in here together to do some work from on high, work from another zone, work from and then another work, supporting each other to that end. Some of us came here imagining that we were going to be open and receptive to receive a hearing from God, words of wisdom, and learning how to practice the use of this thing called imagination in such a way that it would cause, and it is causing, a shift in our consciousness, our thinking, our awareness about a particular concern, some of us. Some of us are thinking about a particular illness, a particular need, a particular whatever we fill in the blank. But you came with the imagination that you were going to receive all that you need in that single moment, in that instant, that would cause that change, that would cause that shift in the manner in which it shows up in the healing. How? That what was is not there anymore. What was a discomfort? What was a sickness? What was a problem? It's not there anymore, because that not there anymore can happen in an instant, instantaneous. We're imagining that if we walk out of here and haven't felt that change in the physical body, we haven't seen that answer before you leave here, we're imagining that we have received the seed of the thing. Ooh, did I say that? The seed has fallen on the soil of your mind, your subconsciousness, and it is taking root, and then it will germinate. What it will do is flower in your life, I'll picture in your life and manifest in your life. You're imagining, oh yeah, I don't know when, that ain't my business. I don't know how, that's not my business. All I know is I'm going to receive the seed. It's going to be implanted in the soil, my subconscious soil. And when I walk out of here between now and then, what then when it manifests? It's going to happen. That's what this topic is today. It's taken from the law and the promise. And that was my meditation, gosh, in case you guys I was just looking at. Ooh-wee. The law and the promise is the first chapter in the book, The Essential Collection. We have a copy on the table if you don't have one. And I think how many books are in that book, The Essential Collection? 7 or 8? Well, the law and the promise, or the law. Is it the law and the promise, or is it the law, the chapter? The chapter in the book. I think it's called the law. The first chapter. There are 8 books. The law. The first chapter, the first book, I should say, is the law. Anyway, there's a chapter in it, Imagining Creates Reality. Imagining creates reality. Did you hear the things I was saying in the opening? I was talking about imagine. That's all this man is talking about. I mean, the man, Neville Goddard, his name is etched, in the walls of memory as a prolific, as a profound spiritual healer. Neville Goddard. As a teacher of teachers, Neville Goddard. Anybody in New Thought and in any kind of spiritual training knows the name Neville Goddard. And he has all of these books and all of these talks and all of these recordings and all of these whatever, and he's talking about one single thing. What is that? Imagination. And he teaches so simple that imagination is God in you, God in man is your imagination. So I have to talk about imagination every time I stand up here. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to read from that chapter. This is edited by me, meaning that it's wordy. And so I've eliminated a lot of sentences, eliminated a few paragraphs because they're redundant and they're repetitive, and for ease of reading, learning, studying, understanding. And so you add this to your book, and we'll go back. We'll probably stay on this material for this week and next week, if not longer. What's the rush? Man is. Read that together with me. What? Oh, imagination. Okay, that's it right there. This lesson is empowering. This lesson today will help increase your law of what I call the law of expectancy. I don't know if there's a law of expectancy, but in the book of Aman, there's something called the law of expectancy. The law of expectancy. That's where we're weak in our prayer life. Mm-hmm. You pray, but are you really expecting? Are you expecting what you're saying to come to pass? And are you expecting that it is already done? Yes. And we need to take that time element out of our prayer life, prayer requests and things that we're working on now. Man is all imagination. God is. Now, do you see man with a capital M? We have to learn how to read. I said on Sunday when I was speaking at Guidance is that, the Bible says this book of the what? Law. Let it not depart from your eyes. It's a book of the law, and in it are laws. principles, rules under that law. But the challenge is that if you're going to a regular lawyer, you're going to a lawyer for a reason, and the reason is that you need help. And you're going with the expectation that the lawyer knows something that you don't know. And so you submit to the lawyer your paperwork or your whatever your situation, and the lawyer reads it and then interprets it. Usually, as I said on Sunday, you give it to them and they say, oh, and you get word because you don't know what that oh is. Because they see something that you didn't see, and they know that you don't know, so they have to explain it to you. That's what reverends are. That's what Bible teachers are. That's what you come here for. That's nothing new. That's been going on since there were Bibles. And so the priest, the teacher, whatever, or interpreters of the law, breaking it down, making it plain, putting it in practical examples and helping you to practice the law, demonstrate the law. So I just told you, God is man. Not that I'm insulting you, saying you're dumb, you don't know how to read, but it's true, you don't know how to read. I'm not dumb. But the point is that you skip the capital M. God is man. It's a capital M. And exists in us. And we in him. Now he just said the same thing in a contemporary way that the Bible says when it says, in him I live and move and have my being. And the him is a capital H, not a small h when you read it in the Bible. In him I live and move and have my being. But you just said the words before then describes what the him is. God is all imagination. In imagination I live and move and have my being. Now that's going to cost you about $50. Lawyers charge a lot of money for their work. In him I live and move and have my being. In what him? In imagination, not my imagination. There's no my imagination and your imagination. Imagination is not split in the body. Imagination is imagination. That's why there's a capital I here. Imagination is all encompassing. Imagination is everywhere present, everywhere we're equally present. We just walk through it. And then we're containers of it. We contain of it as much as we can. We express of it as much as we can. We use it as much as we can. So that can is unlimited. It's limited by our little cans. That was just a download accident. Okay. In him I live and move and have my being. In imagination. Whew. This is empowering, and this helps our prayer life. Helps us to demonstrate, manifest as co-creators with God and in God. He goes on to say, the eternal body of man. Then he capitalizes all of those words. E-B-M. The eternal body of man is the imagination that is God himself. The purpose of the first person,
First portion.
oh, the purpose of the first, I'm trying to get in on my 10%. I got helpers in here. The purpose of the first portion of this section is to show, now he's talking about that whole book, the Essential Collection. He says, the first portion, the purpose of the first portion of this section is to show through actual true stories how imagining creates reality. Now, since we've been here, we've only been working with Neville. We've only been working with this essential collection, which is comprised of 8 books, did you say?
Yes.
One is Feeling is the Secret. We spent a number of weeks on Feeling is the Secret. Now we're on the Law. And what he is saying, and I'm reminding you, I'm just stopping to remind you, haven't we talked about a number of stories already that he's demonstrated, he's used to demonstrate? He's telling you why he's including those stories. It's to show you how imagining creates reality. How imagining through those stories. The world in which we live is a world of imagination. In fact, life itself is an activity of imagining. Life itself is an activity of imagining. So we pause to say, when we overlay this to whatever you're working on in your life, for change, to attract, to eliminate, to whatever, we're going to have to make a commitment in our practice to find ways to not forget, to hold on to the constant awareness that imagining is something that does not have an off and on switch. Can't take a break and go take care of this problem and come back. Can't take a break and go kick somebody in the knee. Then, okay, I'm gonna pick this up here. You messed up, you just said that. I'm gonna give somebody a piece of my mind. You're gonna give them a piece of your time, not your mind. And so you're gonna create a gap. Now you gotta go back and do rework. Start again. Ooh, this was in the early 80s, just past the 70s. The church was called Founders Church of Religious Science. It was my first experience in a New Thought church. Okay. Dr. Bill Hornaday was the practicing standing minister when I went there. Pulpit, Dr. Can you help me, Fred? Yes, his name started with an L. Is
Larry Barber.
No, this Larry Barker was nowhere around me. These were all white guys. Everybody there was white. And we would help this little chubby man. He was the minister. He was his right-hand man. He was his assistant. It seems like his name started with an L. And there were a couple others, but this minister, because I was had just become a practitioner. By this time I was at Guidance, but I was sort of like, I got drunk when I first went in there, so I was reeling on this stuff. You know, I was always in another zone. You know, I was high. And I was busy. So I was a leader in the cadre of practitioners at Guidance, and I was active in what they call the Congress. Do you guys remember that? And the annual meeting and the lawmaking bodies of it, and I was a spokesman. I was outspoken, sort of a radical. You know, I'm new on the block, I'm changing things. And when we had the annual meetings and the voting of changing, creating bylaws and changing bylaws and things and all that, I was always, for our group, you know, a leader. Frederick, I think his name. Anyway. Yeah, not yet. He looked at me and he befriended me. And he invited me out to his home, which was way somewhere. just to have lunch. And I went, found that very unusual, but then that wasn't really unusual because I was a mover and a shaker. And so during this lunch, he was talking to me, and when I left, I was still wondering, like, oh, that was nice. What was it all about? But I didn't hear, because he was a practitioner. He was a spiritualist. He was a man with a high spiritual consciousness. But I didn't hear him until later. That's effective, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's cool. And what I heard him say, he was letting me know that he used the word sensitive. So he was getting me to see and recognizing what sensitivity was and being sensitive was. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
But he did it and conveyed it in such a way that I was receptive and also understood in a way that I could address it and be aware and then work with it. I have seen it here. I have seen it in different places. Do you see what I'm saying? In how you respond and how you're responsive to. I've seen it in Sundays, haven't you? You just see it in people in general. They're sensitive in the way they react, and the way they respond, and the things that they say, and the things that they do. And you say, ooh, am I right? And you are not even aware of it. And so my point is that the practice, what you're doing here, will bring up stuff for you to see what's the word sabotage. This thing called sabotage goes a long way. That was a good word that was brought to us. What is it that I'm doing that sabotages my success and sabotages my prayer? Just as I'm using the example of sensitivity, other stuff will be brought up for you. Are you willing to look at it? Are you willing to accept it? Are you willing to bring it? You can't keep on doing the same old thing, the same old way, and practicing different results. As I said on Sunday, and as I've said it here before, I did say it strongly last week, and that is this. Too often, this is not you in this room. This is you universally in people who come into this movement and this practice are not aware that they are seeking magic and using this stuff as though they're using magic. This is spiritual, not magic. But your practice of it is that you're trying to use it like magic. And I said before, and I'm going to say this again, you don't get something for nothing. You can't use this like the magicians do, pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Now you see, now you don't, all that stuff. Okay, turn your head and look at this. No. In all cases, when you're dealing with this, you've got to do something, and you've got, a lot of, like ghosts, practicing the presence. And then what you want to do is pretend or act like you're practicing Goldsmith's concept or practicing the presence or image box, the golden key, whatever, and you just sit there and just be still and do nothing. That's true, but it's not, your interpretation of it, your understanding of it is not complete in the practice of where they are coming from. It's nothing to do with them and their teaching. I'm talking about us. I'm talking about that you. People are running around here trying to practice magic and get something out of nothing. In other words, as I said before, here last week, the guidance on Sunday, is that the law of physics, two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. The law of metaphysics two thoughts cannot occupy the same place at the same time, meaning two feelings can't occupy the same place at the same time. You got to give up one to make room for the other. So that means you have to do something. You don't get something from it. You can't hold on to your sensitivity. Somebody can't say something to you, you got to respond all ugly and take it personally. But that, your answer is in that. You were repellent. You are repellent. Your answer could be coming through that person and what they're saying, because you're listening to what they're saying, but you're not hearing what they're saying. God can be speaking to you through that person. So our sensitivity, we have to be careful. You can't hold on to the same old past thoughts and anger and your misinterpretations about what people have done. It doesn't matter. You're 66 years old now. 3 more years, 10 more years, 20 more years. Who wants to hold you? What is it? You have to let go of the past. You have to you can't hold on to the past and then expect something new. And in other words, the scripture says, you can't put what? Old wine into what? New bottles, new skins. But you're trying to do it. I'm afraid in 21 days it's going to change, but you still got that old wine. Hanging on to it. Tell me I'm letting it age. You are letting it age. Look in the mirror, you old. That's age.
That's true.
Still holding on. Your old way of seeing, your old way of being. Change is required for this to work. Change is required in your thinking, change is required in your believing, change is required in your... Yeah, you have to learn to see things differently, but you also must learn to see people differently. You can't continue to see them the same way and expect this to work. And you have to get to the point that anything that has bothered you in the past doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And not only that, it does not mean anything. And as A Course in Miracles says, the only meaning it ever had, and the only meaning that it has now is the meaning you have given it. And therefore, it does not matter. And if it does not matter, it does not what? Matter. Now here you are imagining all that stuff going on. No. That's magic. You want magic to work. Am I right? Mm-hmm. So now that I cut you out, let me move on. Where did I stop? No. I want to get back to this. Where did I stop? Here.
Actual true stories how imagination creates reality.
Read it. Oh, nothing appears. That's what I did. Okay. Oh, look at that. He done slapped somebody in the face. Nothing appears or continues in being by a power of its own. Now that is self-empowering. That is empowering to your prayer life. That is empowering to your thinking and your consciousness about dealing with stuff. Nothing appears or continues in being. Cancer cannot continue in being by a power of its own. AIDS cannot continue in being by a power of its own. High blood pressure cannot continue in being by a power of its own. Lack and limitation it cannot continue in being by a power of its own. An ugly disposition just being mean, just being sensitive, it cannot continue by a of its own. Your imagination is holding it in place. Events happen because comparatively stable imaginal activities created them. And they continue in being only as long as they receive such support. And the problem is not your ugliness, your sensitivity, your intolerance, your impatience, your fill in the blank is not going to change because something is supporting it. Now, let's get out of yourself and deal with your cousins, your children, your parents, your neighbors, your fellow employees, employers. They fit what we just said here, some of them. Some of them are ugly, some of them are mean, some of them are intolerant, some of them is just one thing after another, some of them, and they've been like that as long as you know. Right? And yet, you have negative relationships with them, so forth and so on, because you're expecting them to change, and you are going to be the one to change them. And now you're 64 years old. And you've never been able to do it. And you only got 60 more years to live. And you're going to still try. And it affects your life. Well, that's called being stupid. So then you pick up your serenity prayer and you repeat it. God grant me the serenity to accept the foods that I cannot change. The courage to know the difference. The courage to change the ones that I can and the wisdom to know the difference. You know the difference. Even if it's your child. Leave the child alone. Leave the ex alone. Let them live their lives and let them be who they are. Do they sleep with you? No. While you're with them, enjoy it, but when anybody, you know, then they will love you, and not until then. Okay. When man solves the mystery of imagining, he will have discovered the secret of causation, and that is imagining creates reality. So our subject today is imagining creates reality. Our subject or our topic last week was imagining creates reality. We're still on it. Therefore, the man, the person who is aware of what he is imagining knows what he is creating. Well, I'm slowing this down to help us to understand why it is so critically important to understand a concept that's called 24/7, 360 degrees, 60 minutes out of an hour, 60 seconds out of a minute. That's where we need training. Is to be aware that you're always imagining. Your imagination is always active. It is always creative. It is always making stuff. It is always drawing stuff. So you got to be careful what you're imagining all the time. In other words, the first thing that you learn when you come into this teaching, this philosophy, this religion, this thinking is that this is not a lazy man's religion. This is not a lazy person's thinking, not a lazy person's philosophy. It requires work. It's called intention and attention. Pay attention to your intention. All the time.
Oh.
And when the food comes to you, you smile. Instead of getting your knife out. That's right. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And when news come, process it. The Bible puts it this way: let your words be, I'm going to get you. It didn't say that. No, you didn't hear it because it wasn't true. It says, let your words be yea, yea, and nay, nay. It didn't give you a whole sentence. When you finish, you just go to book. Cut it short. Yea, yea, and nay, nay. You don't need to fill in all of this loads and loads and loads and loads, because usually you do it because of your power and your position of strength in the situation. You generally have the upper hand, and so you take advantage of that. Am I right? Is it my house? Therefore, the man who is aware of what he is imagining knows what he is creating, realizes more and more that the drama of life is imaginal, not physical. All activity is at bottom imaginal. An awakened imagination works with a purpose. It creates and conserves the desirable and transforms or destroys the undesirable. Now that we need to. Before I reread this, what I want you to look at and think on is the things that are what imagination is, an awakened imagination. And this is what we're doing here. That's what we're doing. So we're awakening that imagination. See, it's not, imagination is there, and it weighs about 3 million tons, but we just need to awaken. It's there, but its powerlessness is in our being asleep at the drive, sleep at the wheel, in the operation of it. So our discussion here awakens us to the power of this imagination. Awakened imagination works with a purpose. Well, what purpose? It will create or it will destroy. Your imagination can destroy those cells that are creating negative results in your life. Your imagination can reconstitute your blood system. It can give you a new blood transfusion. Your imagination, look how many people in the past have been healed of incurable things. And look at Charles Fillmore. Who knows the story of Charles Fillmore and what his healing was? Tell me what it was.
Yeah, he had tuberculosis in one leg.
He had tuberculosis in one leg, you say?
Yeah, yes. From the time he was a kid.
From the time of birth.
He considered himself to be more scientific than spiritual.
Right.
But when his wife persisted in doing what she was doing and he observed the transformation in her, he moved over to that side.
So let me explain. Charles Fillmore was the co-founder of the Unity movement that is worldwide, New Thought organization. Myrtle Fillmore, his wife, was a victim of tuberculosis or incurable disease, and she was healed, practicing this stuff that we're talking about. This, because Quimby had predated her. And perhaps Mary Eddy, I think, had predated her. And who was the founder of Christian Science. And she studied these teachings. And she was healed, of tuberculosis at a time when that was an immediate death.
Yeah.
No. Charles Fillmore was, it's not that he was necessarily a non-believer, but that's my wife, I support her. But he was born with one leg shorter than the other, am I right? And so in practicing this, his leg grew in balance. made a believer out of him. But this was done through the practice of imagination. Do you see? So what this is saying, an awakened imagination works with a purpose. It creates and conserves the desirable and transforms or destroys the undesirable. That's what we're working on. Let's talk about the desirable and wrap it up, have a discussion, and pick up from there next week. So, the desirable. Then that's what we're doing. Yes?
So I've been wanting to be clear about there being sufficient funds in my bank account. And so what I've gotten from this reading today, that sufficient funds is no different than healing cancer.
That's right.
That it is imagination, because it comes to me that I remember people saying, and when I went to the bank, there was more money in there than I thought there was. So it's like Spirit is telling me money is an object that can be created just like physical healing. So I'm getting it.
Okay, and let's talk about that as a desirable. I think we're talking about some undesirables. And I talked about this on Sunday. And we'll have the message next week. But I can put this down probably. What will happen when you're using this as one of your goals in your prayer, in meditation, and working on demonstrating this with the power of imagination, then you have to deal with expectancy. What are you expecting? Number one, I'm expecting change. It says right here, an awakened imagination works with a purpose. It creates and conserves the desirable and transforms or destroys the undesirable. Now, what I read and what I perceived in the instant, in this moment, overlaying what you said, it gave me the understanding and interpretation relating directly and specifically to what you shared, is that the way this will be working for you, and this is your expectancy, this is what you're expecting. It will be creating for you through your mind and by extension in your life changes that are corresponding to the shift in consciousness and the changes that is going into your thought system to make that possible. But, and at the same time, destroy. Did you hear that? Destroy all those old negative thought patterns and all those other reasons that you have perceived and received and that have been blocking that from demonstrating in your life. Now, you open your journal. We talked about journalizing 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? And then, as you sleep, we talked about that, and slumber on your bed, then he openeth your ears and seals your instructions. All this stuff works together. When you wake up in the morning, there's fresh manna on the tree. You capture it. You remember that dream. You remember that something. You're being given directions. So you capture that and you write that. Your consciousness is changing. There's a shift going on in your mind. Not only that, but it's outworking now in your world and in your life. How? I don't know. God's ways are beyond finding out. All I know is that I know stuff is going on in the heavens. All I know. How many channels are there for me to receive my good through for as many people as there are online? Do you hear what I'm saying? Like a worm, like a virus. It's working, but it's a positive thing. Working through people's minds that are like minds, like yours. All of a sudden you're finding yourself, you don't even know why you're there, how you got there. You left home with the intention to go there, you're going there, you go there, don't even know why you were going there, but he's there, she's there. Pass me that cup, pass me that creates a conversation. Do you hear what I'm saying? Do you know how A Course in Miracles came about? Do you know the story? You need to read it. Just like I'm talking about. Everybody who was needed, who was to be a part of this thing coming into existence, just popped up, showed up, rendezvous accidentally, not even planned. Your prosperity, you're talking about your fun. That's the way it works. If you really believe this stuff, then this time next month, you don't even know what you will be doing, and you don't even know who you will meet, and you don't even know who comes out of your past saying, do this and do that, and all of a sudden, 2 months from now, you're $50,000, $100,000 richer than you were from this start. Not necessarily by the money in the bank, but by the things that you need, that you didn't need no money to pay for it. You know what I told the people on Sunday? I wasn't planning to talk about that. I was talking about what we're talking about here. My topic was mental atmospheres, creating a consciousness for. I gave you an example of me being in this church. Look at what I have. I have a studio. When I get here, the door is already open. Everything is already set up. The people are already in place. Diana is already here. She has already made the copies for us before I get here. Get up in the morning and call and say, what do you need? I get here, there's the videographer, the audio technician, the developer, everything. If we have a pianist here who I didn't ask for, she had a minor little procedure, and that's why she's not here today. But we didn't ask for her. But she's a professional, she's a music therapist. She just showed up to give. We have Martell, Rena's mother, who works in the office, always there to do anything that we need. If Diana can't make the copies, she's got it covered. And then she comes in, she sets the place up, and she wants to beautify it. She wants to do this. What else can I do? We have food on the first Tuesday, but look at the kitchen, state of the art.
Parking lot.
Parking lot, we have everything. How much do I pay for it? Not a dime. I was trying to give the church a donation every month. Didn't I tell you that?
Yes.
I get a call from Reverend Lisa 3 months ago. I hear that you're trying to pay to be in this church. I want you to stop it. Do you know what you've done for this church? As long as I got a church, you got a church. As long as I'm a minister of this church, don't you be trying to pay to be in here. This is your church. Am I answering your question? I'm sharing that to answer your particular question.
Yes.
But you see, I have going on in my mind, my thing don't have no switch that goes off and on. And I'm just saying, just in case you got an off and on. Leave that off and on. When it comes to that, when it comes to prosperity consciousness, when it comes to my needs met, when it comes to my stuff is already waiting for me before I'm aware that I'm going to need, it's already there. I just have that law of expectancy. I have that consciousness. That is my living imagination. I live in that imagination. The house that I'm in, I didn't go looking for it. It called me. The car that I'm driving, I didn't go. I called my niece one day and said, I think I'm ready to go get a car. We made 2 stops. Went to this stop. We left with our mind made up. This might be the one. But you know what? We haven't looked at this other place. Went to the other place, and I walked by this life that was there. That's the car that I'm in now. And it said, I'm it. And I told her, I think that's it, but let's just go, don't make it this. Came back to that one. But when I left home, that one was calling me. It was the perfect one for me. But I'm talking about, we're on material stuff right now. And when it talks about money, I got money here. Okay. I might not have as much as Bill has, but the point is I'm okay. I'm comfortable. Now, if a need arises, you're not going to see no sweat on my forehead. I'm chill. I'm cool. The weight will be made, it shows up. But one thing about me in my life, I don't put dollar signs on what I'm stuff. You can put a dollar sign that's in your mind, but not me. Mine come to me by right of consciousness. See, your consciousness is your money and not that green stuff. The green stuff shows up to match your consciousness. Well, there's a principle, there's an axiom, there's a law that says water seeks its own level.
Yeah.
So if your level is low, that's what you're attracting. But you can increase your level by this. Now, next, who else wants to? Did that help?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank
All the Virgos have
No, it's not a question. It's an experience I wanted to share, and it has to do with what I've learned being in this class. I had a judgment in my favor, and the party was to pay me in 3 payments. And I had more than one friend said, oh, they're not going to pay you the rest. They paid me the first payment last month. Oh, you're not going to get any more. And I really had to just let go of what other people were saying and stay in that imagination. And what I did was I saw dollars coming into my hand. I saw money coming into my hand. And just this past week, they were supposed to pay the other payment the first of this month. They didn't pay it, so a whole week went by last week, and I'm like, oh God, what's going on? So I just stayed in that place in my imagination of knowing that the money is already there, it's already done. And so yesterday, the attorney called me and said, they came in and they brought the check for both of the payments. They paid the whole thing. They did the whole thing.
But you were doing your work. You reminded me of same story that happened to me. This will be the last because we need to go to a close. But before I share that, what I do want to say in continuation with the facility is not, even though she said, Reverend Lisa said that, I attend this church more regularly than I do any other place. I come on a regular basis. But this place is now a main point in the sharing of my time. As a result, I give the church more than what I was trying to give them as a payment for our being here. Do you hear what I'm saying? Yeah. So now I give more than I was giving before. Because of her faith and her practicing the spiritual law, the church receives more than it was receiving before. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
So don't get it twisted. And the other thing in sharing with your demonstration, part of my life in terms of being provided for is sustained by the same thing that you're talking about. Because I was sitting outside the courtroom on the final meeting when Juanita Dunn was praying with me and for me as my spiritual practitioner. But I was practicing this stuff here. And sitting with a meditation in her just before this final meeting, I can recall her guided meditation in her imagination, what she saw. Do you hear what I'm saying? In my own imagination, I practiced this. And the vision matching the words that were coming through my mouth, I will always remember. That's why I'm practicing this and teaching you this. What I saw in my imagination, the vision came to me. And the words came out of my mouth. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. The concept in my mind was Pontius Pilate. When they brought him to be accused and dealt with Jesus by Pontius Pilate, he said, bring me some water. Let me wash my hands, for I don't want to be accused of killing an innocent man. You remember that?
Yeah.
Do you know that story?
Yes.
That came to me. And so what I said in my imagination, in my treatment was, wash your hands. Wash your hands. Now in that final meeting, where they were supposed to make a decision regarding my case, dealing with my past employment, working for Los Angeles County, and this was in the mid to late 80s, and I have never worked on a job from that day forward. Not for money. I have never worked for money since. All my work has been in service, never charging for anything, whether that's somebody talking to me as a practitioner, whether that's somebody coming to a workshop, a seminar, or when I travel across, when I was traveling a lot. How much you charge? I don't charge. I'm already paid. So why would I double charge? God has already paid me, He is paying me every month. Then I'm going to go charge. That was a blessing.
Yeah.
And so I sat outside while my attorney went inside. He was in there for a short time, and he came out. He said, I've never seen anything like this. Those were his words. He said, they said they are throwing in the towel. Did you know what I said?
Wow.
They're throwing in the towel. Now, I'm David and Goliath. Me against Los Angeles County. Their whole slew of professional attorneys and all these organizations and their psychologists. Well, when I went to their psychologist that I was required to go to, do you know what he said? He listened to my story. He said, oh my God, that's the kiss of death. I will do what I can to help you. They're psychologists. So then let me take you a step. Am I still on your case, sister?
Absolutely.
Then let me take you a step back. When my employer came to me on the day of my blessing, stood over my desk, because I had gone to his office to say it was time to process the paperwork for my promotion because I was acting out of class over this big department, but I missed the filing of the date to take the exam. And I was in the in crowd, there was no problem there. Now's the time when you do what we always do. You go do your thing. Go talk to personnel, all they do is they can do it. But he got a little bug somewhere in his ear on this particular day. You know where that part of the body is. So, and said to me, now we're supposed to be like this, and I'm supposed to be on the in crowd, I'm supposed to be on the team. He said, young man, one day you will learn. If you don't look out for number one, nobody else will. In other words, you should have been taking care of your business instead of taking care of the house, the store. You shouldn't have been, you see what I'm saying? And I internalized that in the form of disappointment, in the form of betrayal. It was betrayal. How can you do this to me? You know who who I am? Do you know I made you who you are? I'm a kingmaker. Am I right?
Yes.
And so I was off sick for 2 years. Not realizing to the end of the second year of being sick that that was the biggest blessing that could have happened to me in my life. And it goes back to Joseph, am I right, in the Bible. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good.
That's right.
In this imagination practice, you have to start right to end up right. You have to start from the point that anything that in the past that you've been working on to heal was a blessing. And that you wouldn't be where you are, who you are, what you are, if that woman, that man, that mama, that daddy, that employer, that neighbor, that somebody hadn't done what they did
That's right.
back then.
That's right.
Then. And it was a blessing, but you made it a curse. And now it's time for you to reverse the curse.
Yes.
That's what this said. So when that man came to me on that day, he was sending me out to a new world and a new life that I would have otherwise held on to and probably would have retired just a few years ago from Los Angeles County.
That's right.
But everywhere I went from that day forward, I was already paid. Because I got a check every month, as I do now, every month. From then to now, until I close my eyes, I don't have to worry about rent and mortgage and light bill, gas. It's already paid. Everything that comes to me, I buy other stuff, like take Wayne out to dinner or something. Do you hear what I'm saying? So my attorney came out to me and he said, my God, you are a millionaire. Just didn't drop down all at once, but he's talking about extrapolating over the next period of your life, you're okay. So then as I went forward to the ministry, I don't go out charging. I don't need that. I don't need you to pay me to be here. Do you understand what I'm saying? I just swipe the card. God's card. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's where healing is. Holding on to stuff and holding on to the past blocks your good. And it affects your health. Because I had neurocirculatory asthma, neuro this and that, and I had insomnia, and I had this, and I had the scratches and the itches everywhere. And I just had all this kind of stuff because I was sick. But I had just come into new thought, and I caused those things to be eliminated one by one by practicing this. So I owe this teaching a lot. I owe this church a lot. This is a source through which I can give back to what I have received. So do you do that also, what I'm talking about, in the practice of trying to demonstrate more? Do you do this that you're hearing now? Do you give back more? Do you try to be God-given? Do you play a game with God? I do. I wake up and I say, I give you what I give you. I'm going to beat you. But he beats me at me trying to beat him. Giving. Do you see what I'm saying? So as a result, I have a prosperity consciousness. I have a consciousness that draws opportunities and giving back to me. It's because I do something first. And so it is.